Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today for JETRO Chicago's Jconnect Webinar Series. My name is Kevin Cowell, Business Development Specialist from JETRO Chicago, and I'll be moderating the webinar. Our topic for today is cybersecurity, featuring two companies and thought leaders based here in Chicago. From smart appliances in the kitchen to embedded sensors in 20-year-old machines on the factory floor, IoT is expanding rapidly and relentlessly as organizations attempt to capture new efficiencies or gain new insights from newly connected devices. Across smart cities, homes, and vehicles, and industries ranging from healthcare to manufacturing, billions of IoT devices are in the field today, and billions more are expected to come online in the next few years. But as IoT opens new windows of opportunities for business, it also introduces new types of risks in cybersecurity. IoT architects must consider the growing complexity of cybersecurity threats and the challenges when deploying and managing IoT devices and services. Therefore, it's imperative for cybersecurity to be on the top of mind for every organization. We would like to welcome you if this is your first time attending a Jconnect webinar. Our focus is to help connect innovative North American startups to Japanese affiliated companies doing business here in North America. And most importantly, to facilitate business relationships between the two. Likewise, it aims to improve the productivity of Japanese companies and help to accelerate their open innovation strategies. JETRO recently added a landing page for the Jconnect Webinar Series on our JETRO USA webpage. You can find dates and information on upcoming industry topics, as well as recordings of our previous webinars. Today's webinar recording should be available on the site within about 48 hours. So again, please check out JETRO USA's website for that. So I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Carl Nierup, founder and CEO of COGS Systems. Based here in Chicago, COGS Systems is an IoT cybersecurity company that has been adopted by more than 30 governments, defense agencies, and international companies. They provide a secure, embedded system that has been described as most promising and hottest in numerous magazines and awards. Before launching COGS Systems, Carl was Vice President of Samsung Global Enterprise Business, where he led sales for the Samsung Knox Secure Mobility Platform. He held Vice President positions at General Dynamics Broadband, in charge of business development for GD Protect, and AT&T's Strategic Business Development Organization, where he was responsible for identifying new business opportunities across all of AT&T business units. Further bio and company information can be found for speakers on the registration page. So I will now turn it over to you, Carl.
All right, just give me 1 second here.
Sure, there you, I see you there. If you want to go ahead and share your screen.
I think you can see my screen, correct?
Looks good.
Great. Well, I want to thank, on behalf of COGS Systems and all of our employees, I want to say thank you to JETRO and all of the participants in this event for giving us an opportunity to share some of the good things or great things we think we're doing and the potential applicability for your own business. All right. Let's see if I can get this to change pages for me. Change pages. Page down. Okay. Okay, so COG as a company is very simple. If you think about it, the easiest way whenever a venture capitalist calls and asks if I will, if they could give me some money, and then they ask what we do, I like to say that what VMware is to cloud computing, COG is to IoT. So if you can understand that basic concept, then I think that we're good. But in short, we virtualize IoT. And when I say IoT, I know that it's a broad brush. I largely like to use the term connected devices. That's one space that in particular, we're very, very good at. And it's a hard-earned specialty because it's very, very hard because of the chipset manufacturers that you have to work with. The focus of our business is largely strategy, consulting, and system integration. Now, as Kevin said before, congratulations, we're sitting on a gold mine, okay? Pick your study. The number of connected devices is growing demonstratively, okay? Yet consumers lack any confidence in their security. And frankly, in most enterprises, when I work with commercial customers, most enterprises, the Chief Information Security Officer or the CISO doesn't even sit at the big table, right? They're represented by the CTO. So security, while everyone will tell you how important it is, you tend to find that they don't necessarily spend money, but consumers care. So let me tell you just a bit about our company. We're headquartered in Chicago. We have an office in Washington, D.C. We are a U.S. company. We were founded in 2015. And probably the thing that's most unique about our company is our deep heritage. We actually developed the original L4 microvisor, the OKL4 and SEL4 hypervisor. And I can tell you that they are now deployed without your knowledge, which is exactly how it should work, across more than 1 billion connected devices. And you just would never know. The story I'd like to tell quickly about how you can tell is in the good old days of mobile, whenever we'd have a device that would freeze, what would you do? Well, you'd have to power down and power up. You do a hard reboot. Well, that's because Qualcomm, when they built their stack, they built it like a skyscraper. And as you know, with skyscrapers, each floor is built on top of the other. So if one floor fails, the whole building comes down. And that's what would crash your device. So Qualcomm approached our company in the early days and said, hey, we'd like to solve this problem. And so Qualcomm and COG took the skyscraper, laid it onto its side, and then we virtualized each component so that when one failed, everyone else kept running, and we would just send a reboot command to that VM virtual machine. And that today, my friends, is why you no longer have to do a hard reboot on your mobile device, because of that simple fix that is in every Qualcomm device, and that's the L4 microvisor. Now, we focus predominantly on virtualization and embedded software for connected devices. It doesn't mean we can't do something else. We have a strategy at systems integration practice. An example of that would be that we have a chipset manufacturer that's thinking about moving over to the RISC-V platform. And so they called us and asked us if we do a study for them on what the best approach to security would be if they actually wanted to build it in from the start. I will tell you that most of our customers are Western governments, which would include you, naturally, and regulated industries, energy, banking, as such. And then we do have some select commercial customers, but we don't spend a lot of time there because our government customers tend to be pretty demanding, as they deserve to be, and we're solving real world hard problems for those folks right now. We do develop some products as an offshoot of some of our work. We actually are in the process now of developing an ultra secure mobile device, an ultra secure dual domain device. Think of a device that could run business and personal, red, black, high, low, depends on what segment you're in, but it would be one device. Okay, by the way, on a standard commercial or COTS device. Okay, and also there's a retransmission device, which is a way to essentially provide secure comms from a laptop, if you will, where you may not have control of the environment in between the laptop and the Wi-Fi. All right, so a little bit more. So the issue I find, and this is the conversation I like to have with customers most of all, is that we're all about security with benefits, okay? I think all of us today can acknowledge and look at each other and say that, look, security is the #1 threat, but no one's buying it. People don't like to buy security. And so when we talk to our customers, we do a lot of time we spend a lot of time talking about bringing value. And this is so we can break through to the C-suite, get to the big table for the conversation. So when you talk about reducing cost, improving performance, accelerating innovation, protecting intellectual property, that's what people will pay for. And that's what we do. Now, if you're the government, you say to yourself, well, look, I'm paying for the security, but I also get these other benefits. But if you're an enterprise customer, you go, well, hold on, you could take cost out for me, protect my intellectual property, and I get world-class security. So you see, depending on your segment, right, one or two of these will be more powerful. But I would argue they're not a trade-off. It's not an or statement for you anymore. It's an and statement, okay? So let's talk about how we do that. For us, it's all about modularization. Oh, I guess that was a double tap. That's okay. See if I can get it to do it. Okay, so for us, it's all about modularization. Almost every connected device today, I don't care whether it's your Ring doorbell, whether it's your cell phone from Sony, Samsung, or Apple, or if you happen to be one of the few left with an LG or a Kyocera device, God bless you, okay? Even the new Microsoft Duo is all built on the left side of your screen in a monolithic approach. To use a very timely analogy, this is akin to somebody that 10 people are in a room and one person walks in with COVID and starts breathing. God forbid they sneeze. But the fact is if you put all your people in one room and one person gets COVID, the whole room is now susceptible to COVID. And that's the fundamental flaw with the way devices are architected today. So COG takes a different approach. We modularize the device. I can tell you that as an extension of my analogy before, if I had COVID, I don't, and I've been tested. I know that seems unusual because it's the United States, but yes, I have been tested. It did take me 5 days to get my results, okay? But if I had COVID, the odds of any of you getting COVID is nearly impossible, at least from me. And why is that? It's because we're all modular. We're all sitting in our own separate containers, our own separate virtual machines or rooms. And so it doesn't allow for that virus or that malware to cross the boundary. This is what COG does on your device. We carve it up into a series of virtual machines that creates a kind of isolation that allows us to contain a virus. I'm not telling you that with COG, your device won't get infected. It will. What I am telling you is that it won't spread to the rest of the device, and that's what will protect you long term. Okay? So there's a few things that I kind of like to talk to here. We are virtualization tool agnostic. So whether you want to use SEL4, OKL4, Bedrock, Zen, we're happy to work on any of those. We have an opinion, and if you ask us, we'll share with you our opinion. But we'll go do it, right? Some are harder than others. All right, we'll work across the ARM, RISC-V, and Intel ecosystem, though I would say we're experts in ARM. And we can take you all the way through from strategy, design, integration, and then lifecycle management. So let me give you a good example of how intellectual property protection works in this environment. I can't say the name of the customer because of a lot of the, well, yeah, because of the nature of our business. We're in the security business. But we had a customer who developed a mobile payments app. And they had created a mechanism to do authorize the financial payment, mobile payment, through facial recognition. Okay. Now they had spent a lot of money on this AI to do facial recognition. Now, normally the way you would handle facial recognition on a mobile device is that you would just leave your facial recognition software up in the cloud. And so the phone would look at the face, transmit the data to the cloud. From the cloud, it would come back to the device. Okay. Well, if you're in an area without good network, you're going to have lag. Okay. So what did this customer do? They actually had us create a separate virtual machine. We put their AI for facial recognition on the device. It protects their facial recognition. It also enables edge computing. So we've now done two big things for these folks. And by the way, now that they've done facial recognition and they've dropped it into a virtual machine, if they want to go from a Xiaomi device to a Sony device to a Samsung device, it's easy to do. Why? Because you pick up the code and drop it onto the new device. It's software reuse. It's the fundamental. And that's how it works. But let me share a story about a use case, because sometimes these are the most useful. We've been working in the ultra secure mobility space for a while. Something everybody wants, based on isolation, right? And if you look, whether it's your government, whether it's the US government, whether it's the French or the Germans, it doesn't matter. They all want the same thing. Even our friends in China, okay? They might do it slightly differently, but they all want the same thing. And so we build a foundation to the device built on modularity. We use a commercial device so that no one can tell the difference. You are walking around with an ultra secure mobile device and no one knows the difference. Noriko-san, ask the audience if they can guess what A51 is short for. All right, I'll wait and just see what comes up in the comments. I can tell you we haven't branded it yet, okay? But A51 should be easy if you think of Nevada and Americans' current obsession with conspiracy theories, okay? You can see all the other stuff that we do on the commercial device. But the slide I find almost everyone loves is this slide. This is the architectural approach. So you can see how we start to carve up the device into separate virtual machines. So the general purpose VM could be Android. It could be Linux. It doesn't matter, okay? Most cases they have us use an Android device. Android, right? Android thinks that it's attached to the modem, but it's not. The modem is actually attached to a second layer VPN. So every piece of data coming out of Android goes into the VPN and gets encrypted, and then it's directly routed to the modem. So nothing leaves that device unless it's encrypted. I can share with you that we gave an early version of this device to our friends at the NIH, the National Institute of Health in the United States. And they came back, they used it because they had to go to a conference in China. And they came back, I'm not picking on China, okay? I don't have a bone to pick there. But they came back and they said, Carl, we found that our phones wouldn't work when we were trying to communicate over the network. And I said, well, why is that? They said, well, it would connect and then it would disconnect. Well, the whole reason it would disconnect is because there was a non-bypassable VPN. So the Chinese government, it would hit China Mobile. China Mobile would go, oh, I see the call, but it's encrypted. I can't hear it. So they cut it off. And so the customer said, well, how do you solve that? He says to me, and I said, well, you're really left with two choices. you can talk in the clear, or you cannot talk in the clear. Okay, right? And so I said, and if you don't care, if you care, then I think you should be glad, because this means the device worked. Okay? So by putting the modem and the Wi-Fi and the LTE all into separate virtual machines, this allows us to do this. By the way, the DAR stands for data at rest. So we actually do 2 layers of DAR, 2 layers of DIT. So data in transit, VPNs. And what happens is it allows you in the general purpose VM. Android has its own encryption that it does automatically. So what's really interesting to watch is how quickly the device moves when you're real-time double encrypting data on the device. And you won't notice a difference. That's the point. If you did, why would you call us, okay? Everyone's too comfortable with having everything be lightning speed. So anyways, that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please give me a call. We talk to a lot of people, a lot of enterprises. We've even worked with companies in Japan previously. It's not difficult for us, okay? We are an international team by nature, mostly because of the technology we work with really requires that we go get the best in class engineers, okay? I'm just a pretty face. Clearly, I'm not doing the best job at that, okay? But again, on behalf of all of the employees at COG, and to my friends at JETRO especially, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Carl. Our next speaker is Syed Alam, who is founder and CEO of Jconnect, based at the Chicago Incubator 1871. Jconnect is an IT digital solutions company that provides expertise in the areas of cybersecurity, analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, and digital transformation. Mr. Alam has over 30 years of leadership in information technology, cloud computing analytics, and content protection transformation projects through his extensive experience with Miller and AbbVie Pharmaceuticals. Syed served as the global leader for cloud computing and digital workspace for AbbVie, overseeing global collaboration, cloud infrastructure, and solution architecture programs for the $28 billion pharmaceutical company. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now, Syed.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and great job, Carl, with a very informative presentation. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is here, wherever you are. I want to first of all and first and foremost thank our friends at JETRO. We have a very good relationship with them to give us this opportunity to present some of the things that we are doing here that are related to cybersecurity. Kevin, just for housekeeping, can you see my presentation opening slide? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, we can hear and see everything clearly.
Okay. So today I'm going to spend some time with you guys about what we are doing related to cybersecurity. That one part of our business. Overview about our company. So we're a startup. We started in 2018, a little over 2.5 years ago. And when I left AbbVie, where I was heading their cloud computing and security platforms, we are based in 1871 Chicago, which is one of the leading tech incubators in the world. In fact, it was rated #1 in the world for 2020. What we do is we provide cybersecurity products and services to large organizations in pharmaceuticals, aviation, financial services, logistics, as well as national defense and homeland security. And to keep our compass in the right direction, to have the right handles on the levers, we are proud that our leadership team has almost a century of combined experience in technology, intelligence, military, government, and management. Our SaaS-based platform allows large companies to operate securely on a global scale. That is really our value prop for this particular line of business that we have. In terms of our leadership team, Kevin has already done a great job, describing me. Maybe a little exaggeration, but that's okay. I'll take it. Eric Miller, who is our VP of Government Affairs, he works very closely with governments at all level, local, state, and federal level. He brings a lot of experience, over 30, 35 years of experience in policy development and making sure that the legislations are in place, make sure that our relationships at the governments are in place, and he provides the link that we have with doing something as important as security for government agencies, and we're glad to have him on our team. Our advisor is the former junior senator from Illinois, Senator Mark Kirk, who not only was a legislator at the United States Congress at the House of Representatives, but he also served as the United States Senator in the Senate. But in addition to that, he retired as a commander in the United States Navy Reserve, where he was an intelligence officer. So Mark brings the level of insight at the highest level. I mean, I'm talking at the level of, the Secretary of Defense and possibly the President's level and the Senate level, that we, normal people don't have any access to that information. He brings that insight to when we're talking about the military operations, when we're talking about the intelligence of this country's borders or the infrastructure. We are absolutely amazed that he provides us that guidance, and he's part of our leadership team. So we bring that. That is part of our value proposition, that we are not a fad company. We are going to bring solutions that are backed by 100 years of experience in doing things in a big way. So what are we talking about? What problem? When we went into business, or when I went into business for the third time, this is my third startup. The first question an entrepreneur asks is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Why would somebody pay attention? Why would somebody be interested in what you're doing? And then more importantly, why would somebody pay you for what you're doing? So as we all know, that data breaches are just too easy right now. Any platform, any technology, any hardware, it is just simply too easy to break into that. And then we hear it on a daily basis, and that breaches are happening at all levels, from financial services companies to airlines to government agencies, you name it. The second problem is the cyber attacks, where you have your systems that are on premises or within your four walls, and as well as the information that you are now more and more putting on the cloud is under constant attacks. And these guys are trying to be one step ahead of finding any loophole where they can get in to the information that you have or the assets that you have and steal them from you and steal the rewards of your hard work. So that's already happening. The third threat is the internal leaks. There's employees and their contractors and business partners, and sometimes they're bad people mixed in with almost all good people, and they have their own ulterior motives to take advantage of the legitimate access that you have provided to them in good faith, to take advantage of that for their own needs. And that is also happening. And that's actually one of the big issues. A lot of that is very hard to detect. And I'll share how our solution helps with that. All of that means that there's not only hundreds of millions and possibly billions of losses to your own business, but also a lot of times you have to pay people who got hurt because you weren't able to be a good custodian of their assets. And that really leads to a competitive disadvantage, and it simply isn't viable for businesses to really continue on that path. And there has to be a jolt, and we see that jolt, and we work with companies that are jolted, and they're really looking to course correct in terms of not having a strong information security or cybersecurity regime. So how do you solve that? And you heard from Carl, and it was about hardware. Our focus is on data because we believe that truth lies in data. That's where you find out not only what has happened in the past, but if you utilize AI, machine learning, and analytics, you can also see the future. So our solution, our platform uses a network of AI-enabled sensors to protect corporate assets from internal and external threats. And the way we do it differently on whatever the problem is. And since our product is universal, we develop models for different applications, but we would develop a model based on what are the key parameters. We identify the data that will feed that model to have predictive analytics capability and information discovery. We train that model on vast amount of data and train it to a certain level where it starts making accurate predictions and it starts providing correct information. And once that happens, then we would deploy it. But the beauty with AI and data and machine learning is that it's a continually improving model. So it learns every day, just like a child learns over their lifetime. These models continue to learn. So that is the basis, that's the core, that's the money shot for our business, understanding data and using it to provide information that can defeat the bad guys. So what does our platform provide? What do customers get? So we have a complete solution for cybersecurity and operation that continuously learns and improves to thwart current and emerging threats, which means it protects information from internal and external attacks. It is comprehensive. It covers all aspects of information security, including theft, breach, and damage. And it prevents, because it's constantly learning and not only looking at the current threats, but it predicts what are the emerging threats, and it allows to prevent that. And some of that, we see that happening, emerging in social media. So it really is very effective at predicting based on what is happening in social media to predict there's a potential for some sort of activity that needs to be looked at. And then finally, everybody that we work has global interests, and also the fact that the bad guys are just not located in one location, they're all over the world. So our solution covers the entire globe. So how does this work? This is at the highest, simplest level. In the interest of time, I didn't want to go into more detail. I just want to, at a conceptual level, explain how this works. So our platform is integrated with devices that our customers has as a software solution. And then when anyone interacts with that device makes a call to our software engine, AI engine, which engine then looks at that particular individual, and then it assigns a persona to that. And we have developed personas of frequent flyers, we have engineers, doctors, also bad guys like potential terrorist, potential smuggler, potential hacker. And it assigns that persona to that individual and also a behavioral risk score, just like a credit score that tells that this based on their recent activity, what has their behavior been and what is the risk of them to continue in whatever they're trying to do. So it assigns that, and then it passes on that to the right parties. So we are not on a law enforcement agency. We don't make any decisions. We will just assign the persona and the behavioral risk score and pass it to that and our customers' appropriate organization to take the next step. As I said earlier, this is a universal solution that our customers are using, and it applies to all industries based on what their parameters are. So for example, in manufacturing, we have applied that to protect manufacturing processes and equipment and infrastructure. For our pharmaceutical clients, we have applied it to protect their intellectual property and trade secrets from internal and external threats. In aviation, we have applied that to protect travelers, aircraft, and airports against terrorism, as well as preventing smuggling. And then also we have applied that into national defense areas where it secures the national borders, as well as military from state and non-state actors. In terms of our data platform, so you're probably thinking, well, okay, well, how do you know all of that, right? Where do you get all this stuff? And you know what we know that is there's like I don't know, there's some crazy figure that every 4 days we generate more data than it was generated in centuries. So there's so much data that's being generated. So our data science and engineering teams work with major web and social media platforms, in addition to the data that our customers themselves have, to collect enormous amounts of data that feeds our machine learning frameworks and AI algorithms. Then our thorough and robust models testing software ensure the quality of our system is near perfect, and we are able to select and deploy the best variables for each use case. So some of the places that we get, and by the way, our data is fully compliant with United States data privacy laws as well as GDPR. So we are not really invading anyone's privacy. This is all anonymized. Our data providers may include third-party data companies, social networks, major search engines, mobile, broadband and video network operators, career and hiring sites, and all other sources. And we have more than that. This is not an exact exhaustive list. So we collect enormous amount of data and then mix it up with the data that our customer proprietary has, and then run it against our models to really have our software do the magic. And you know, I wanted to, in the interest of time, I just have picked 3 very simple use cases of how that would work. But we have use cases for all other scenarios. But in the interest of time, I wanted to just cover these few 3 cases. So for example, airline ticketing, an example would be if a likely hijacker attempts to purchase a ticket from an online website. When he would attempt that purchase, our software AI engine would assign a persona of a likely hijacker to that individual and assign a BRS of, let's say, 98 based on their recent activity and their persona. And then that information will then be passed on to TSA and airline security, depending on what the customer has selected. for further action. So we will just look at that and we'll say, okay, this person looks like it's matching a persona of a hijacker, and it has his recent activity or her recent activity has raised flags with us what they've been doing, and we'll pass that along. So that will be a red code red. We'll send that, and then the authorities will take the appropriate action based on that information. Another example would be if a likely smuggler would try to purchase a ticket. Again, our software would do the same thing, assign them the persona, and then also maybe not a red, but a yellow BRS score of 76 based on what they've been doing and how likely they are to engage or how close they are to engage in an activity, and then send that over to the appropriate authorities. And obviously, in the case of a traveler who wants to just travel, our software will look at it and say, hey, this is the persona of a leisure traveler, and their behavior risk score is 15, they're green, and then they will just pass through that without any hesitation, because obviously we're not interested in anybody who, who's just, trying to live their life. We're trying to identify people who are trying to hurt us. So these are some very quick, but obviously, if I had more time, I could share some more information. What we provide is enterprise cybersecurity so that our customers and government agencies can operate securely on a global scale. We protect an organization's information, property, and infrastructure. We protect them from internal and external threats of damage, theft, breach, and misuse. We prevent misuse of information on all major social media platforms, with all the stuff going on with the fake news and countries trying to influence other countries. I'm not going to name any names, but you know who they are. We deploy that, and then we have a solution that that is continuously improving as we're getting more data, as we're seeing anomalies. And that's another key part of our solution, is that we're not just looking at some things that have already been done before, because that is not enough. You have to look at where's the anomaly and lock in on that anomaly and resolve that anomaly, or predict that based on this, we believe the next step is going to be that, and we need to pay attention to that. So that's really what our value proposition is. I really, again, want to thank everyone. This is the end of my presentation. Thank all the participants, JETRO, especially Kevin Kolb, who has been a great partner with us, and his team, and your interpreter, and everybody else. I'm forgetting your name, but it was very nice to meet you. My contact information is here, and you can definitely reach out JETRO if you want to have a follow-up conversation with us. And we don't just provide cybersecurity, that's just one part of our business. We do digital transformation, cloud, and analytics. So if you're interested in any of those, for example, one of our apps is content tracing. We are also working on an app right now that will allow in the United States to deliver the vaccine when it's available in the fastest and most efficient manner, because again, we need to prioritize who gets first. So our app is going to make it really convenient, where you will enter your parameters, and app will say, okay, your vaccine is going to be available at this spot. That's what's going to be knitted to between a half-hour window. Think about how nice that would be if you could do that, as opposed to just showing up and waiting for 4 hours for a vaccine. That's terrible. So we'll do a lot more, but I'm really happy to share this information with you. Excited, and hopefully one day I can run the Tokyo Marathon. That's my dream. I've done all the marathon majors except for the Tokyo. So if you guys let me in, I'd love to run that marathon in Tokyo. Thank you so much. Kevin.
Thank you, Syed. I'm looking forward to running the Tokyo Marathon with you. So hopefully we can get in next time. I just wanted to mention that we are planning to have upcoming Jconnect webinars on the topics of blockchain on October 1st and robotics AI on October 22nd. So we hope you can join then. As I mentioned previously, please check out the new Jconnect landing page for further registration details. That'll be going online here pretty soon. So I would like to share an opportunity with our attendees. Our good friends at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana have launched a multifaceted apprentice program in the field of cybersecurity. And their apprenticeship program is one of the most flexible in the US, where companies can customize the courses based upon their needs. Purdue would like to specifically work with manufacturing companies as well, and they are seeking companies that can advise their program from their industry viewpoint. The program features Dr. Marcus Rogers, one of the top cyber forensic experts in the US and perhaps in the world, who consults with many governments, US federal agencies, and companies on audits of their systems. So if you are interested in learning more about this program, I'm going to launch the third poll here. There we go. Please vote yes in this final poll so that JETRO can send you further information. JETRO will not share your email directly with the university, so you're only sharing this with JETRO, and we'll give you the information that you can see on the screen here. So I think we'll go ahead and move to the question and answer session now. So just to start off here, we're in COVID-19 pandemic, so we have a massive shift to remote work. How is this, like the pandemic, how has it impacted the cybersecurity strategy for companies, and maybe in your opinion, what should companies be doing in this time? So, Syed, would you like to start?
Right, that's actually a very good question, because obviously, when we go to the offices, you see that there's not a lot of places that have a lot of workers coming in, including 1871 and where my wife works. So everything, all the work shifted to the internet, where people are working from home. They're working on their own Wi-Fi systems that may or may not be protected. They're working on sharing information, and it's traveling, data is traveling over possibly a lot of points where it could be compromised. There's a lot of meetings that are happening on Zoom, even including this one, and Zoom bombing has been a problem for a lot of our customers too. So we actually have been helping our customers to plug those holes. So we again look at the patterns of activity that's happening. We have deployed our solutions there to see what activities are happening that shouldn't be happening, and we then alert our customers if we see that we're seeing patterns over data transfer that shouldn't be happening. For example, if there are files that getting transferred to a particular, there's like hundreds of these file storage solutions, and all of a sudden you start seeing these files getting transferred to a certain area. We alert the customers that the files are going in an area that they shouldn't be going. There's communications happening on channels that shouldn't be happening. We alert them again, because the customer no longer has control over the communication channels. They're happening on private, public networks. So their threat level has just increased so much more, and I think our solutions kind of are helping with that.
Carl, do you have any feedback for that?
Yeah, I think I just go with a real life example. So I'll leave out the names to protect the innocent, but if you operate in an environment of zero trust, this COVID requires you to work remote. It's almost as if it's in conflict, all right? And so now you start to go down the checklist of how you mitigate your risk. Curiously enough, we are actually we've actually been sponsored now to build what we call a retransmission device. Okay. And we actually are working on 2 different flavors of the retransmission device. It's really curious for 2 different customers, actually. One of them wants to enable the retransmission device. And if you didn't know better, the retransmission device, think of it as an LTE puck, okay, a Wi-Fi puck. It looks like that. There's no screen, nothing else on it. But if you do a certain behavior on the device, it'll move to ultra secure mode and enable a type 2 solution like a Hypori to then appear on your laptop, okay? Which is a great answer. You now have a secure tunnel for this remote desktop type solution. As we all know, a company like Hypori, who has a great solution, you're only as good as your network. So this isn't something you want to do in the back of your RV, sitting out in Yellowstone National Park. The second solution on this retrans is that we have a customer who's actually had us do it and build, again, another secure communication channel. It's not obfuscated in this case. By obfuscated, what I mean is because we work on commercial devices, unless you know there's a secure component to it and you know the secure gesture, you would not know it was a secure device. Okay, so you can just give it to your kids. They can use it for whatever normal commercial use it has. And then when you take it back, you just, type 1, 2, 3, 4, or not. There's any kind of thing you can do, again, when you work at our layer. And it moves into secure mode. But in this case, the customer, they don't even trust the Wi-Fi network. So they've actually asked us to enable an Ethernet connection between the PC and the retransmission device. We actually kill the Wi-Fi radio, isolate it, and then just don't connect it to anything in the device. Okay, and then run 2 layers of encryption in the retrans device. So it's a nested VPN. Right, so congratulations, you got through the outer, you're not getting through the inner at the same, it's just, I'm never gonna say never, but it gets really bloody hard, okay? And that actually enables some of our more sensitive government agencies to work remotely, okay?
Carl, keeping you on here, we have a lot of manufacturers in the audience. So, when you're looking at the manufacturing industries, you have things now coming, the connected factory, robots on the factory floor, et cetera. What are some, talk about the threats with that and what maybe manufacturers should be thinking? Yeah,
one of the, look, this is a fun one. So if you look at the industrial robotics space, right, and you look at the market, there are 3 places in the world where this is done. Germany, the United States, and Japan. No one else, okay? And I would argue the US is kind of an also ran a little bit, but at least we make the top 3, okay? Not like COVID, where we needed to be number 1, all right? So, Noriko's thought, I hope that helps with the translation. Sorry about that. But when you look at the industrial robotics space, almost all of them now are they're all connected. And if you actually, I was at Black Hat, oh my God, the doors that are wide open on those devices, it's not funny, okay? And by the way, it's not you, the person making the industrial robotic. It's the component you're buying that allows you to connect to the internet, okay? And so if they can get in, you now cause, look, let's just say the least of your worries is that you destroyed 17 Toyotas before someone pulled the plug. The bigger risk is if you hurt somebody, a person, right? Your workforce is your most valuable asset. And so the industrial robotics space, especially as we keep advancing further and further down this pipeline, and by the way, I would argue that COVID has enabled or benefited the industrial robotics space, right? It's one of those technologies that where the adoption will be accelerated because of the nature of the workforce, right? And or the limitations on the workforce. And so, yeah, look, if you should have someone just run a basic scan. Are your devices wide open connected? Or are you using a third-party component where the password is printed on the bottom of the box? Okay, it's just true. It's not hyperbole. But in this case, COG can provide such a easy, low-touch solution. Isolate a couple things, and now you're clean. It just de-risk it, right? Oh, and by the way, when you go to build your next robot, just lift up those software components, dropped it on the new one. Now you've accelerated your innovation. Okay.
Sayed, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can add to that, but again, you know, I mean, I think, can you repeat the question, because the answer was
We're talking about like the threats towards manufacturers, you know, when you're looking at like connected factory and, you know, connected robots on the factory.
So the work that we do, again, as it relates to connected factories and connected manufacturing processes, we are also not only looking for, you know, you know, we're looking for all kinds, up and including the nuclear power plants and things like that, because everything is connected. And our approach to solving these problems is based in data, because everything that happens in today's world generates amounts of data. And what we do is we look at, for example, if this manufacturing process, is this an anomaly? And if this anomaly is happening, is this something that is normal? Is this something just, you know, the equipment is old, or there's a breakdown or something, or is it something that's different? So we detect those anomalies in the process, and we say, this doesn't make sense. This is something that is not a normal breakdown, or it's not a malfunction, or it's not anything, but it's happening in a pattern that we find, you know, suspect. And we will detect those things in manufacturing process. Or if something is happening where their product that's being produced, you know, is in quantities that doesn't make sense. Because I was, and again, I'm not picking up with China. This is true story. I was in China, and my friends in China took me to the 7-story mall in China, where you can, in Beijing, where you can buy all those counterfeit products, from Gucci's to Yves Saint Laurent to tailor-made clothes and all that that's made. And they say, hey, this is not fake. They just made extra and they sell it here. So that's what I'm saying. You know, if you're producing product that you know, that is not in alignment with how much is being produced in a way, or there's activity that's going on in the logs and the data, because every manufacturing process generates data. We lock in on that, and we said there's activity going on here, which is you know, either unapproved product production, or is it there's been some breach where the equipment is being interrogated more than it should be. Like
so Kevin, if you don't mind, let me just, Kevin, if you don't mind, let me just kind of net that down, right, a little bit. The Narika-san, if there's one important thing I would get across to you, I would want to get across to the audience, is a COG solution is proactive. So we bolt the gate before the horse leaves, right? Most of the security solutions you'll see in the market today are reactive. They see the data, they tell you you have a problem, and then you have to go fix it. We take an approach where we say, look, we know you're going to have a problem. Let's go ahead and mitigate your risk. Not that you're not going to have a problem. Everyone's going to keep pounding your devices, keep pounding your network, keep pounding your infrastructure. Proactive versus reactive. Okay. Now there are better reactive solutions who tell you quicker. So at least the horse is only 3 yards out. But if you get the wrong one who's reactive and they're already in the next acre, you're, you know, good luck to you.
And some of the, so I just want to add a little bit to that. Some of the times what we see in these is it's an internal threat. So you can have, what if somebody from the inside is engaged in activity that they shouldn't be engaged in, where they have legitimate access to your production system, to your blueprints, to your they have the password because you gave them the password. How do you detect that? Because no amount of hardware can prevent an insider who you get, like who could have prevented Edward Snowden? What if you have an Edward Snowden in the manufacturing facility? So what I'm saying is that, yes, I think you have to do both. You have to do the hardware level, but again, there are people that you give access to operate your system who could be bad apples. So in that situation, I think it would make sense to have both of them. You need to do both, not just one.
And shifting gears here, towards cities and infrastructures, they're all becoming more connected, our energy grid, et cetera. So there's significant challenges, in place to protect data or energy grid, et cetera. So maybe can you talk about what governments are doing? I know you guys are both working with governments, maybe at the public-private partnership level, or.
Yeah, I mean, in short, as we, let's go I think the City of London led the charge with cameras, okay? They were all CCTV. I'm pretty sure that New York and Chicago are quickly working to catch up, and I'd be shocked if Tokyo wasn't on the list for a number of HD cameras doing facial recognition. The real trick there for us is that it's about protecting the edge, okay? There are a system of best practices that are well recognized for protecting the back end, but if you're not protecting the edge, okay, there's just a lot of risk, because once they get in, it doesn't matter what happens. It's to Saeed's point. Once they're in, Edward Snowden taught everyone a painful. I'm not gonna apply value judgment on Edward Snowden, but the lesson was still learned. And so whether it's from cameras or stoplight cams, motion cams, all of the stuff at the edge has got to be locked down. And the reality of it is that the consumer will not demand lag, will not allow for lag. They want it, and they want it now. So you need to have a way to take this intellectual property that you spent $10 billion on and move it to the edge in a secure way so that it operates at the speed the customer demands. Okay, now if you want to donate that IP to the world software, okay, you can just post it on GitHub, okay, that would be easy. Or you could just post it, let it go onto an Android device or an Apple device, and someone's going to yank it. Virtualization solves that solution by modularizing. Okay, so that's what my suggestion would be. That's what we do, actually. So, yeah, we're doing it actively today.
Syed?
I think that, and I think you're looking for an example of some of the things. So one of the things I'll share is one of the things that our solutions that we're doing for a government agency. Again, you're talking about agency. Simplest thing, but you know how hard it is to tell if the person who's telling you who they are, if they actually are that. Identity resolution is one of the hardest problems for Department of Homeland Security. When they have somebody, when somebody for, approving for refugee status, for approving somebody for immigration status, for anything, they get somebody on border. So, so identity resolution is another area where we work in, where we actually utilize our, again, it actually, because Carl mentioned that it also involves a facial recognition component to that, the facial recognition, but also their activities and their data develops a composite that we can then use to determine whether or not this person is actually who they are.
And how about privacy? You have on the opposite side, privacy advocates, and they might hear about your BRS score or something like that. And we have plenty of conspiracy people in this country.
Right. So that's a question for me, right?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. We'll
yeah.
start.
So everything is anonymized until that person gives up their own identity.
Right.
So for example, if someone is purchasing a ticket, we don't know until they enter their information. We are just matching when you're traveling through the internet, you're leaving a trail of what you're doing. There's cookies that are bought and sold legally in this country about your marketing activities for marketing purposes. So we don't know who, it's anonymized until you say, okay, my name is this. I'm buying a ticket for this person. You give the information to us. That's how we are. We are not saying you are. We would just say our software has matched the persona based on even before you told us who you were.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, look, I would make this, I'll make two quick comments. One, people tend to think of security and privacy as trade-offs.
Right.
Okay? It's an or statement. You can have privacy or you can have security.
Yeah.
I believe that that's a false choice. You can have security and privacy. And to that point, I actually have written a white paper, and just go to my LinkedIn profile and it's posted there. Download it. Okay. And I've talked to I've essentially made my case that they're not in conflict. Okay?
Yeah, and I think that's, but Kevin, that's the first thing when we are in conferences on that. There's like there's a camp in our audience and our customers who say, no, this is privacy. You're invading privacy. We're like, no, and this is why. And I think Carl has said it better than I can, that it's not an or our choice. You can do privacy and security. The balance that you strike is you can strike, and we strike that balance, that we are securing the country without invading any individual's privacy. We're fully compliant with GDPR. And that's like in Germany, you can't even tell which building a person is working in. I mean, we comply with Germany as some of the toughest, and the United States obviously doesn't have the toughest, but I think we're getting there. But we couldn't get the customers that we have if we were impinging on anybody's privacy.
Great answers. Okay, so I'm going to kind of keep moving across the ecosystem here. Maybe we can talk a little about healthcare. Syed, I know you worked with Abbott for many years, so maybe you want to talk what's going on. Abby, sorry.
So what are some of the things that we do for pharmaceutical? I can't name a customer. I was employed by AbbVie.
Yes, yes.
But I cannot disclose any of my customers. Every single customer that we have we have very strict. So in the pharmaceutical space, our work primarily involves in protection of information, because we're working with global pharmaceutical companies that are all over the world, and they have networks that are all over the world, and they have research happening all over the world. And what they are really concerned about, that they spend a few $billion in developing this medicine that's going to be a hit, and somebody comes in and steals their information either by breaking into their system, or somebody inside that is about to get fired because they weren't performing to take that out with them. So again, on the internal, this covers the internal. So it works on internal. All the employees actually have personas based on their activity that do on a daily basis. Scientists have a persona because they're expected to work in a certain way, and they do certain things, because if you have trillions of bytes of data, you can figure out what a scientist at a pharmaceutical company does during a day. And so we have developed this persona, and if they start deviating from that persona, then we start locking into that. Why is this person all of a sudden sending too many emails to their home Gmail account? Why is this person going into folders that they shouldn't be, or they haven't gone in for 2 years? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Why are they logging into this system? Why are they logging in at different times? So when they start deviating from the personas, we start closing in. And then when they pass a certain BRS, a threshold, then we alert people that this has gone too far. So that's where we're protecting our pharma clients from internal, but external. If people are trying to break into their system by using their CFO's email ID and address, but they're doing it in a way where the CIO or CFO doesn't do it in a normal way. We say, well, this person doesn't really do that. It doesn't do it from this IP address. It doesn't do it for this. Why is the user ID? And so both internal and external. It really is based on behavior and about what we know about their persona.
Yeah, so Kevin, thanks. That's actually a great question. So I'll be brief. So I'll tell it through a combination of two stories. So back when the Iraq War was in full swing, there was an interesting paradigm. So when an American soldier would be injured in the field of battle, they would immediately come out to do, you know, the care for the soldier, the injured soldier, and the soldier would have a device on him, right? But because the device was holding classified data, which would be the maps and other such battlefield sensitive data, they had no way of using that device. And so what would the medic do, the corpsman do? He would write down the issues on a piece of paper, pin it to his chest, and when the guy woke up, he was in Germany at Ramstein Air Force Base. Well, by the time he got to Germany, guess what happened to the paper? Well, it's gone, of course. Okay, and so they would have to kind of figure out what happened all over again. Sometimes it's more obvious than not. And so the Army actually approached us and said, well, how could we solve this? Now, I know this may seem like an oxymoron, but we actually we created a second persona on that mobile device so they could still hold the classified battlefield data, but then the corpsman could upload the medical data onto the mobile device in an unclass virtual machine, because the doctors are unclassified, right? And so just by using virtualization, we created two domains, one for classified data, one for unclassified data, and that allowed a more efficient and effective way to deal with the injured or the wounded in the war. The second issue I'd highlight, and I think this is the one we've got to be a lot more sensitive about, right? Diabetes is the holy grail, okay? And there are a lot of companies chasing it. And, you know, you already see the commercials on TV about devices on their arms so they can just immediately just tap their cell phone. My mother-in-law, she has a pacemaker, and she literally just taps with her smartphone, and then that data gets sent up to her doctor. Well, that's all covered by HIPAA. And if you have a leaky device, you have leaky medical data. And the minute you have leaky medical data, guess what? At least in the United States, somebody's going to sue you. Okay? Not to mention, if somebody actually does something where they touch your heart and you die because they had a security flaw. So again, when it comes to working with devices at the edge, whether they happen to be a diabetes, a blood sugar reader, a pacemaker, virtualization is perfect. It's the ideal solution because it can create the kind of environment that allows for the type of high assurance solution that's not only required, but should be demanded. And we believe firmly at COG that this is a trend in our favor. Okay, it's absolutely a trend in our favor. Okay.
And one final topic here, connected vehicles. You know, cars are becoming more and more connected. We have varying levels of autonomy from level 1 to level 5. So
yep.
You've got terabytes and terabytes of data being transmitted. So what do we have to worry about with autonomous vehicles, you know, and connected vehicles here in the future for cybersecurity? Is my car going to get taken over by somebody?
I think there's a Netflix movie that has that as a premise. The Netflix series. Look, the short answer to your question is the automobile industry has been early adopters of virtualization. It is almost a certainty that you are driving a car today that is leveraging virtualization. It has really the use case there is easy. Most of the automobile manufacturers have developed the software for the CAN bus, essentially the stuff that makes sure the car goes and operates correctly. And they've spent a lot of money on it. Well, they don't want to upgrade that software so it runs on a new chipset. And So they've already adopted virtualization. They put the CAN bus into its own VM. Then they put the entertainment system in a separate VM. They put the vehicle sensors in another virtual machine. This is already done. So there's a couple reasons why the automobile industry does it. One, by virtualizing, they don't have to buy as many chipsets. And so if you're a head unit maker, believe me, BOM cost is everything in the automobile business. So they don't buy as many chipsets because they can leverage that. Second thing is they now have the ability, right, to reuse the software from the CAN bus, which is 20 years old, and just move it to the next new vehicle. Reuse. So time to market, reuse, cost takeout. Now, for your fun fact of the day, when you put the key in the ignition and you turn it on, what's the first system that has to come up on the car? I'm not going to wait for the chat box. Rear view camera. Why the rear view camera? Because God forbid you run over that kid in a big wheel behind your car. But that's it. It's not the radio. It's not the turn signal. No, rear view camera. All right. So I'll leave it at that.
Saya, do you have any comments?
Couple of comments. So I think what we have found is that actually breaking into there's two things. Breaking into car systems is relatively easy. It's been done, and I think there's 60-minute episodes on that. But I think that also we need to, autonomous cars are going to rely on 5G. And I think that's another area, because autonomous vehicles also are connected outside of the car. It's just not about what's inside of the car, which is going to be public networks of 5G networks. That integration also presents some specific risks because now your car's data is going out onto a public network, and the security of that happening.
The vehicle to infrastructure.
Yeah. So the 5G integration is also important, because if it's an autonomous vehicle, and like Chicago has 5G, and then 5 miles out of Chicago, there's no 5G, what, a car is going to stop? I mean, it needs enormous amount of data to make decisions. You know, it's just not the cameras that are important in a car being autonomous. There's other information that needs to be fed. For example, traffic information is 5 miles down the road, weather information, also cars going to be traveling back and forth. And maybe there's cars that are going to be connected. If the cars are one behind each other, maybe those cars are talking to each other. And if that is going to happen, that we would need 5G networks. So our research is really involved in, first of all, how to break into the older paradigms of security on automotive systems, and then also how integrating 5G networks into autonomous ecosystem.
And Kevin, if I could just say one last thing on automotive.
Sure.
As a longtime owner of the Z series from Nissan, congratulations that we're going to be introducing today a brand new Z from Nissan. Thank you, my friends in Japan. Okay, the GTR was a huge upgrade for my 350. Okay, but I now know, I guess we're gonna have the Z Proto, I think. So as soon as I'm done here, I think the video should be out. So thank you to my friends in Japan. That's right, even a big man like myself fits in those cars. And man, do I like to go fast. So thank you for continuing with the tradition of the Z. All right, thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move to closing comments. If you guys want to give 30 seconds, a minute, maybe just to kind of wrap up and give any final thoughts. Carl, go ahead.
Yep. At the end of the day, security is something we all think about, but we have a hard time justifying. Which is why we approach it from a value statement. How much money can you save? How much money can you make? How much faster can you go? And when you start thinking it from that way, virtualization makes sense. The world would not be the world today if it wasn't for virtualization. Cloud computing is enabled by the invention of virtualization. which, by the way, was created in cooperation with the NSA. That's true, okay? We believe that that same type of virtualization revolution is coming to the ARM and RISC-V environment, and you should be looking at it today, or you're going to be left behind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carl. Syed?
Well, thank you, Kevin. So I think I am really glad, and I hope, Kevin, you also, that you got to see two faces of security. I think you see the machine part, and I think you got an expert in the face of Carl, who knows the machine part of security, the hardware part, the design and virtualization. And I think you also got to see, so I got to see that. And I think, thank you, Carl, for sharing all that information.
You as well, my friend.
You also saw the behavior part of that and the secure data part of that, because I think it's not one or the other. Again, it's a compromise. It's a balancing act. You got to look, you got to have a lock. You got to have a safety lock outside of your door, but you also got to teach your children not to leave the door open at night. It's both, right? So you saw that, and you saw that, and you see, and you go down 5 times and say your kids are not locking the door. You think, hey, you got to lock the door. So it's behavior, it's training, it's data, and it's the machine part. So I mean, I hope your audience, you know, caught that you know, we covered 2 different aspects, but 2 equally vital aspects of that. I learned a lot from Carl today. I learned a lot from you today about your audience's questions. And I'm just thrilled to be part of this dialogue. We have been admirers of Japanese products all our lives. So, you know, if anybody wants to reach out to us, we'll be more than happy through you or information that I've already provided, but we'd love to talk, to have some deeper conversations, how we can solve their problems.
Great.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carl, Syed, for presenting in our Jconnect webinar today. So thank you so much. Thank you to our attendees for sticking around here towards the end. We look forward to seeing you again at our next Jconnect webinar on the topic of blockchain, October 1st. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again.